Hello everyone, and welcome to my review slash reaction to Doctor Who Series 10 Episode 4, Knock Knock, written by Mike Bartlett and directed by Bill Anderson. So this episode guest starred David Suchet, and as to be expected, he was absolutely brilliant. In a way, it's so disappointing that he's only appeared in this one episode of Doctor Who, and I'd love him to appear in more episodes of Doctor Who, but sadly this episode it doesn't necessarily waste him. I think he's got plenty to do, but it doesn't feel, I don't know, I feel like he's such a talented actor, and he plays the landlord so exceptionally well that I suppose part of me was hoping that they'd be setting him up as a recurring villain, because I can't understand how you get David Suchet to do Doctor Who but only do one episode. But no, he was absolutely fantastic first and foremost. So good. I loved his mannerisms. He was so friendly but creepy at the same time. And I think they just perfectly blended that together. It was just, it was exceptional. Yeah, the episode, sadly, Knock Knock as an episode was very disappointing to me, and there's a few reasons why. I don't think this is a bad episode though, nowhere near. I just think it was disappointingly, compared to previous installments this series. You know, which is a little bit disappointing, but I think we were going to get to an episode like this sooner or later, so it's just a shame that it happens to be the Haunted House one with David Suchet. That sounds like a perfect episode in many ways. But no, the episode begins with Bill meeting with a friend. I don't think she appeared in any of the previous episodes, which, I don't know, I can't understand if you're going to do an episode like this not to introduce a friend of Bill's, or all of the characters as friends of Bill's, you know, even if it is just in a brief little scene in the pilot. That might have been quite nice, but I don't know. It's a nitpick, but no, she's getting introduced to most of the characters, but then we don't really get introduced to most of the characters. The episode kind of rushes through everything, and it's almost a bit too much. The episode makes a point about the contract, but the contract doesn't really come into it very much. I thought it was going to be something they'd sort of play on later, but they didn't really. And I felt that was a bit of a shame. Maybe it was something cut from the episode, but that did annoy me a little bit. Yeah, the characters, they weren't necessarily flat. I think Mike Bartlett and the actors did a very good job of trying to establish the characters, but they never really, they never had enough room to breathe in the story, I didn't think. And that was a bit of a shame. I was kind of hoping the story would be a bit more of a claustrophobic horror, and instead it didn't quite get there, and part of that was because the episode was so well lit, like really brightly lit. I don't mean well lit as in, it's really atmospheric. It just lost almost all of its atmosphere, and while I didn't mind the sort of warmer lights earlier on in the episode, as the episode went on it really needed darker lighting, and it just wasn't there. It just looked too bright. I don't know, the episode just didn't capture the atmosphere that I think it was actually going for, and that's a real shame. And part of that wasn't helped by the resolution. People have pointed out that Doctor Who does quite a lot now, this whole idea of the misunderstood monster. And we have that in this episode as well. And it was sort of the first time it really bugged me, and I think that was, it was a shame. The whole payoff with the wooden lady at first being David Suchet's daughter and then turning out to be his mother, it didn't work as well as it should have done. I think they were better off deciding on one or the other to begin with, instead of trying to twist it, because I don't think the twist particularly worked well. But it wasn't a bad payoff. It just felt a little bit underwhelming, and it really didn't help with the atmosphere. Maybe had the atmosphere been more prominent in the episode, I'd probably be more likely to forgive it, because at least it was kind of the resolution, but the whole thing just didn't have the atmosphere it needed. And I'm not sure whether that's the director's fault or whether... I don't know whose fault it would be. I feel like I kind of have to blame it on the director, because they should have been handling sort of the atmosphere of it. I think it was Bill Anderson who directed this episode. It's a real shame, and the episode doesn't really have any character beats, which in a way is good. It puts the story first and foremost, but sadly the story gets going almost far too quickly. We have this montage and then suddenly, right, they've got the house. No, they're looking at the house and they've got the house, and then the doctor turns up on the first night or something. It's it rushes its way through the first act that I don't think the story quite manages to get started properly. And then, I don't know, it just, I think it was the lack of atmosphere. The story just doesn't work quite as well as a haunted house episode. You know, the bug creatures were interesting. They never really went into explaining them, and I don't think that would have been too bad, because in horror there's a lot of ambiguity and stuff. And I would have forgiven that a bit more if there was more of an atmosphere to it. I feel like the whole thing just lacked the atmosphere it needed. It just wasn't necessarily that it wasn't scary enough, because the ideas were all there, but the presentation of the ideas just didn't make them particularly scary, and that's a real shame. And I think that's where the episode just falls to underwhelming. That being said, the episode definitely has a really nice sort of doctor-companion dynamics, and they get separated, which is quite good. Or at least I thought so, until it turned out that the sort of extra characters they got ended up being killed off, only to be brought back with everyone else. Yeah, the episode made the mistake that Thin Ice didn't, in that it killed off characters to bring them back again, and I think had it just been the previous two deaths they could have brought back, that would have been okay. But no, the episode didn't feel like it had any consequences, and that was a bit of a shame, because, you know, the whole house got destroyed, so what happened to everyone's belongings? Yeah, this is kind of my big problem with it. There's no atmosphere, and it feels a little bit... Yeah, it didn't build on anything, I don't think, and maybe that is because Mike Bartlett is a guest writer and wasn't as involved in the planning of the series. But no, it didn't entirely work, and that's a bit of a shame. Again, not a bad episode. There is plenty to like it. I really like a lot of the ideas, and I think they could have done something fantastic with those bug creatures if they just seemed a bit scarier. Like even the spider creatures in Kill the Moon, a story I admittedly do not like. Those are pretty freaky, and I'm not a fan of bugs, yet I was completely fine with it. Yeah, I just thought the episode was a bit disappointing, and they had a bit of a problem with the next time trailer text, I noticed. I'm not sure what happened there. It like flicked up towards the end of the title card, the next time title card. I'm not sure what was going on there. The next episode is Jamie Matheson's really scary, apparently, episode, Oxygen, and that sounds really cool and it looks really good. So here's hoping that Oxygen is more the episode I was hoping Knock Knock to be. If I was to give Knock Knock a score, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. Not a bad episode, it's just kind of average, and that's a bit of a shame. But David Suchet and the sort of the ideas the story juggles with, and the set was really good. The haunted house set was great. It's a shame it was so brightly lit. It was almost like watching an episode of 80s Doctor Who. It just didn't have the atmosphere. But then there were like one or two scenes, brief scenes, where it was really dark and atmospheric, and that was great. It just wasn't really inside the house. And I think they built up everything really, really well. You know, there was a bit of tension when the Doctor and the landlord met for the first time. That was really cool. But yeah, 6 out of 10, not bad, not that good, to be honest. But yeah, those were my thoughts on Knock Knock. What did you think? Comment below, let me know, and I'll see you all next time in Oxygen.